So happy first Sunday of November. How is everyone? Good. A big hello to each and every one of you. Let's say hello to those that are watching us on live stream and Facebook Live. We're happy to have each and every one of you here this morning. As stated, I am Keith Cox, and my title is Reverend Dr. Keith Cox, and I'm known as the spiritual leader of this beloved community known as the Center for Spiritual Living, Los Angeles. I welcome you and honor you today as you join us and join each other and honor yourself on your journey of finding your personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening. We are a metaphysical-based New Thought community here that honors you on your path of your journey of your awakening to the power of the divine that resides within each and every one of us. The way that we both experience and express this power is through our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, our reactions, and our interactions with life itself. We teach here primarily the science of mind, which is a philosophy that was created by Dr. Ernest Holmes and published in a book in 1926. And in its modern incarnation, it's known as a philosophy, a faith, a way of life. So I invite you today that as we spend this time together, and I jokingly say it's about 66.75 minutes that we're here together today. It's actually not. It's going to be 3 hours and 18 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But we will be together today somewhere between about an hour and 10 minutes in this room on a journey of opening ourselves up to knowing who we are as a divine being. We have some fantastic music planned for you here together, and hope that you appreciate it and enjoy it and trust and know that we commune together today for the purpose of honoring that power within us, for collectively using our minds in a way to invoke and impact good in our world, and to reveal the 7 qualities of the divine, the 8 qualities that we believe exist within us, which are peace, power, beauty, joy, light, life, love, and wisdom. So I see some new faces here today, and I want to welcome you if you're here for the first time joining us, and know that we appreciate you being here, and we all believe that we're here by divine appointment. And to honor our beloved founding minister, Dr. David Walker, who started this particular community a little over 30 years ago now, each and every Sunday as he would walk to the podium, he would say, "We welcome one and we welcome all." So we open our service every Sunday morning with a ritual. It's an opportunity to anchor yourself into one of the qualities of the divine. It's led by our practitioner of the day, who is Jim Every. I'll welcome him to the bema now, as well as our illuminator, which is Reverend Lenore Edney. She's welcoming people in the back, so she'll be right up. Our musicians will take us through a beautiful piece of music called Calling in the Light, and you'll have the opportunity to not only honor the light within you, but participate in the call and response aspect of this. So Jim, Reverend Lenore, you're on, and Doug, everyone online and here in the room, Calling in the Light.
Please join me.
This morning is called Calling in the Light. Today, we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all people and all faiths, all sentient beings, come from the one great universal presence, which we call Spirit. The purpose of this ritual is to draw into our gathering this morning a conscious awareness of our oneness and the qualities we possess as complete expressions of the divine. As we feel the vibrations shift during this experience, may we become ever more aware of the light of life that exists in and as all of life, including you and me. Today we use each of the letters of the word peace during this ritual to create an opportunity for each of us to embrace our light in a more expansive way. So we start with P, and that stands for purposeful. P, purposeful, which is defined as having or showing determination or resolve. May we each be alive to our spiritual awakening. With resolve, we play a role in the co-creation of our lives through our mental and emotional actions. Lenore lights the second candle, E, for energy. In the book of The Science of Mind, Dr. Holmes defines energy as a divine and unfailing attribute, and consequently, there is never any lack of it. Today, may we be each committing to using our energy in productive and life-enhancing ways. A, this third candle is illuminated for the word activation, which is defined as the action or process of making something active or operative. Today, may we consciously make active our thoughts, actions, reactions, and interactions in and as life reflecting the innate peace within all beings. C. Now you light the fourth candle. That C stands for consciousness. Synonyms for the words of consciousness are awake, aware, alert, responsive, sentient. In this moment, may we each tune into our ability to be aware and commit to living our life awake and alert to our ability to impact the world and consciously invoke peace with each thought and action. With E, we light this candle using E for the word evolution. Dr. Holmes defines evolution as the passing of spirit into form. The passing of spirit into form. Traditionally, it is defined as a process of gradual, peaceful, progressive change or development. Today, I affirm for all, as a result of finding personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening, progressive changes and development in manifesting in and as all as spirit becomes form. Peace, purposeful energy activates conscious evolution. Now moving to the sixth candle, Lenore lights the sixth and final candle, which is known as the healing candle. We ask you to take a moment and think of anyone you would like silently to put into the light of the healing flame to experience the eternal and everlasting love of the divine.
Please repeat after me. I am love. I am peace. In your heart. I am free. I am spirit.
this moment, let's have a treatment. Let's take a nice deep breath. Relax in this feeling of peace. And know that peace is ours. No matter what is happening in the world, no matter what we're hearing on television, on the internet, no matter what is going on out there, there is peace. It's coming from us. And it does take that work. Progressive energy activates conscious evolution. That we have to be there. We are doing that now. So that even then, we just feel peace. It doesn't matter what's going on. Because that's life. Life happens. And those things happen, and so what we do is center ourselves and know that peace belongs. It's right there inside us. So we are able to calm that out, bring that forward, and no matter what is going on. And that takes that conscious energy which we are willing to give for the good of everyone, for the good of our own being, the peace of our own surroundings, the peace that we demand, the peace that gives us trust and clarity and all of the attributes of God, so that right now we own that feeling. It's inside us, that trust, so that whatever is happening, we go back to the center, we go back to our life, we go back to what is the actual seed of life in us. That is what is emanating from us and coming back to us. That feeling of reciprocity, that feeling of coming and going, that knowing that whatever is happening, there is that center, there is life, there is God right here, right now, no matter what is going on. We see that peace, we accept it, we embrace it, embody it, and we are grateful that we have the ability to do this. And together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Jim, and Lenore, and Doug, and Yaron. So you heard Jim say, because I know there's some of you that are new here today, he said we're going to do a treatment. And in metaphysical, science of mind terminology, treatment, the formal term is spiritual mind treatment, and that's the methodology by which we do affirmative prayer. So I just want to make sure that you all know what's transpiring here. So, do you like my new hobby? I did it this morning with the intention of wearing it on my head, but I couldn't get it balanced. So I thought I would carry it as a purse. So this is a result. It's a flower. I love it. She stood up to go, what am I seeing over there? So this flower arrangement was here yesterday for a bar mitzvah that took place. As many of you know, we share our home here with Congregation Kol Ami, which is a progressive Reformed Jewish synagogue, as well as there's another Jewish synagogue that practices their faith here called Congregation Makom. And I share that with you for a couple of reasons. One is to look at the symbolism of what took place at the Tree of Life synagogue last Saturday, which was obviously horrific and really disturbing. And I'll speak a little bit about that more in my message this morning. But Rabbi Denise and I were talking about this week that particular church environment, that sacred space for practicing spirituality, is much like our sacred space, and that there are three communities that meet in a building at different times to create what we like to call a safe space for each and every individual to practice what they believe the power of the divine to be. And so I invite you to continue to know that that is the case, not just physically for everyone in this building and all structures where people get to practice through freedom in our country of their chosen spirituality and religion as well. But to know that we are doing our due diligence in this building to do what we can physically to protect everyone from a safety perspective. But the last piece of that I want to look at is that to look at this beloved individual who went through their bar mitzvah yesterday. And this is someone who's stepping into their adulthood, at least from their religious, spiritual perspective. But what they're really doing is stepping across a milestone in their life, understanding who they are as a being on the pathway and the power that they have and how they choose to use their life and their ability to choose how they use their life in a new way. And so as conscious metaphysicians, I would like for us to collectively know that for this individual and all who are going through their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah at this time in their life, that they feel safe and secure on the journey of their life, that the events that have taken place have not rattled them at a deep place from a perspective of fear, and yet they know that the event itself doesn't define them, and that they have the opportunity to live an empowered life. And by us knowing that for them, there's a ripple effect that supports that. So thank you. On a different note, we have some great music for us this morning. Would you guys agree with that? Some great music? I just set the bar pretty high for you. So Doug Rapetti and Yaron Spiewak.
Sometimes I lay beneath the moon and thank God I'm breathing. And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. 'Cause my life I've been to say that they don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no wars, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day, one day, It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they feed on the souls of the innocent, drenched in and keep on moving on the lost day raging. Sometimes in my tears I drown, so when negativity surrounds, never let it get me down. I know someday it'll all turn around. My life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for, to say that they don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no wars, and our children will play. One day, one day this all will change, treat people the same. Stop with the violence, done with the hate. One day we'll all be free, and proud to be the same sons singing songs of freedom. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. My life I've been waiting to say that they don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no wars, and our children will play. Sing it with us. It's coming here, come on. One day, one day, one day, one day.
Thank you. Doug Rapetti and Yaron Spiewak, ladies and gentlemen. So that's a no. That's a Manto Santiago who wrote it. Manto Santiago. So how many of us can believe it's November in the year 2018? Seems to have flown by, right? You know what that means, right? It's time to start getting ready to make your turkey. That's what it means, a little apple pie, whatever turns you on food-wise. So what that also means is that we are in a new month, and so it's time for a new theme. So last week, the one and only, the both famous and infamous Dr. Sue Rubin wrapped up our theme, Living from Your Awakened Self, correct? Isn't that the theme that we had? It's past and I forgot what I had created, Living from Your Awakened Self. And she was brilliant from what I saw. And I know you guys loved her, and I heard you gave her a standing ovation. No, so, I know how to use the law of expectation. Anyway, so we now move into a new month. And the new theme, or the theme for the new month, is staying present in the presence. Now, it's building on living from your awakened self into this month of, if you're now choosing to live from your awakened self, then what is one of the primary objectives on that journey? Well, it's to stay present in the presence. To stay present in the presence. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, there are times that that's quite challenging. I have a feeling that that's probably the case for all of us, because what we're going through in the world right now, certainly at the world of effect, meaning the conditions or the experiences that we have in life, it seems to be, I'll speak for myself and assume that many of you are the same, that there's many different activities that are showing up in the world that's causing me to certainly question how I want to show up in the world, to question how I want to use my mind in the world, to question how I want to use my choices in the world, and oftentimes to question how I'm using them in the world. But certainly when we look before us and see what's about to take place in the midterm elections, that within itself is a bit challenging, and all of the mishigas that's going along with that. When we see that there are people within at least 1 week alone that have been killed in a grocery store, or killed in synagogues, or killed in a yoga studio, or that our elected official is sending troops to the border of the United States, and that there's outrageous claims going on that we have illegal aliens invading our nation, that during these times can be really, really challenging to stay present in the presence. Would you agree? And during those times, it can also be incredibly difficult to stay awake to living from your awakened self. And yet, what we're called to do during these times is to be more hyper-vigilant than ever, to know who we are. To know who we are. Not just as spiritual beings, but as human beings that is walking a spiritual path, that is a spiritual being walking a human path, and understanding that both of those statements are only being used to describe the synonymous activity that's taking place that isn't even really synonymous. It's really only one activity taking place. And so can be quite challenging on that journey, but it's important for us day by day, by thought, by belief, by action, by reaction, by interaction, by reaction, to know and to act upon the principles that we know exist in the universe, the law of cause and effect, the law of reciprocity, the law of expectation, the law, fill in the blank. In other words, the law of life, and to be consciously aware of the faith that we have in the good of the universe and life itself. that it is incumbent upon us, it is critical of us that we not only just look at what's going on in the world of effect, but to know the spiritual truth of that and to consciously stay present in the presence while that which is taking place in the world appears to be completely opposite to the presence and the power of God. Last Tuesday night in this room was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had in a long time, and also truly one of the most trying and challenging for me to be one of the speakers and presenters during a prayer vigil and a remembrance activity that took place honoring the lives of the 11 who, according to Rabbi Deese, were brutally murdered in that synagogue. Because it's very difficult, it was very difficult for me, I will say, to stand up as a practicing metaphysician and share that which I spiritually believe to be true while knowing that everyone in the room was grieving, and certainly for many in the room who were feeling at a very deep level that who they were as human beings and their philosophy and their religion and their way of life was once again being attacked and persecuted. That which on some levels felt like it had been healed was now being opened up as a really nasty, dirty wound, and the wound was raw. And I kept asking myself, what am I called here to share? What am I called here to share? And what I was called here to share was terminology that is akin to what I'm saying today, that our role on this journey of finding our personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening, if that indeed is our vision, if that is indeed our journey in life, then what are we here to do? And what became very clear for me standing before the multitudes in this room was to remind us that we're here with every thought, action, reaction, interaction in life to not only call upon the light of life that we just sang about, but to see that light, to be that light, to honor that light that exists in every single sentient being. What was being called forth that evening in this room was a healing. Dr. Ernest Holmes tells us that healing is a revealing. It's a revealing of what? The spiritual truth that all that there is God, which in many ways is considered a very intellectual statement, and it can be, but it also can be a very experiential statement. To know that being transcendent of the conditions that take place in life doesn't mean that we are excusing behavior of anyone. It's but by knowing that as we look into the eyes of each and every individual that walk this planet, whether they're making choices in their life to seem to be contradictory to that which is an outpicturing of the divine or not, there's still the power and the presence of God. And so I told them that each and every Sunday in this room, we do a ritual called calling in the light. And then the last candle that we light is a healing candle. And in that healing candle, we ask to put in to that flame the flame of the divine, someone who we would like to have a healing, a revelation with an individual that knows that they're a divine being. And I said, what we're required to do in this room tonight, and I believe it's the same for us as we choose to live from our awakened self and engage in practicing the presence, is to consciously see the light in every single individual. To see the light in the 11 individuals who lost their life last Saturday, those that were maimed and hurt, those that were there defending them. And then to really dig deep into our spiritual musculature and see the light of the individual who walked in there with a gun. And to then see the light of our elected officials that we believe is propagating and perpetuating this. That's what we're called to do. I'm not saying that's easy. And I'm not saying that means forget what took place. I'm just saying if we really are choosing to find our personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening and to live from our awakened self, and in so doing commit to practicing the presence, that's part of it. That's part of it. It's part of it. And if we can't do that on our own, then just like forgiveness, knowing that any act of forgiveness is enough, any act of attempting to see the light is enough to engage in the healing that is required for us on this planet. Because I know for each and every one of you in this room and those of you watching online, you want our world to look and be different. Correct? We're all tired of what we're experiencing separate from politics, but just from this discourse that's taking place, this energy that appears to not just appear, but it's contrary to love, but to shift that, to create a shift in what's taking place. And we know that that can't be done alone with thoughts and prayers. We know that we must be aware of that which we think. We know that prayer is important. Why? Because it aligns the mind with the oneness of life itself. And out of that alignment, then we place it upon the law of life. And the law of life brings back to us an experience that is equal to that which we're placing upon the law itself. But what's required of us, even more of that, is to take action. It's to meet and greet someone new and engage with them and have conversation with them, even when we know at the very fiber of our being they disagree with everything that we have. Not easy, but that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're called to do. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called staying present in the presence. Well, what do I mean by staying present in the present? Well, if you look at the word present itself, it's both an adjective and a noun. The adjective aspect of it is that it's like a doctor must be present at the ringside, or a minister must be present at the bema, right? So it's the physical showing up, but taking it even deeper as a noun, being present in the presence, mean being in the moment as the presence, the divine. Being present in the divine. And as metaphysicians, we know that we can actually go beyond that. So not just to be in the moment, in the divine, but being consciously awake and receptive in the divine as the divine, being the vibrational frequency of the very thing that we are. It's living in the present moment and going beyond the present moment. In researching this for this month, I found a lot of writings around the concept of living in the presence, of staying in the presence, of being present in the presence. And I'm going to share that with you over these next 4 weeks. But what really spoke to me that I want to talk to you today is some writings that was from Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection. You're probably going to hear some words this morning that if you have an anti-Christian belief system within you, you might freak out and bristle a little bit. Good. Because what that means is that you're being called. You're being called to open your mind to be able to look at the big picture of what's being shared as opposed to being attached to terminology that might rub you. Because the rub is just simply you're being called to a higher understanding and a higher use of your mind. And Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection, and by the way, some synonyms for resurrection that I think may help you if you have an issue with that term, is rebirth, revivification, reappearance, restoration, resurgence, renewal. So what Brother Lawrence was just all about rebirthing. He was about coming into the new. He was about letting go of the old and embracing that which is constantly becoming renewed. Well, what is constantly becoming renewed? You and me, by means of our minds and our skin and our organs. Everything is constantly renewed. And here's what the brother says. Now, first, he served as a lay brother in a Carmelite monastery in Paris. Christians commonly remember him for the intimacy expressed concerning his relationship to God, as recorded in a book compiled after his death, which is called The Practice of the Presence of God. And here's what he said. He said, he says, the practice of the presence of God strengthens us in hope. Now, if you're an old school metaphysician and you say there's no place for hope, today's the day to work through that. Because I think that first and foremost in what's going on in today's world requires hope. It's not enough, but it's required. To see that we need to hope. Hope meaning the desire for change. That's what hope means. To me, that's what it means. And then being a participant in that change, not as an observer, but a participant. He writes, the practice of the presence of God strengthens us in hope. Our hope grows in proportion as our knowledge, and in measure as our faith by this holy practice penetrates into the hidden mysteries of God. In like measure, it finds in him, the divine, the Christ that exists within each and every one of us, a beauty beyond compare, surpassing infinitely that of earth, as also that of the most holy souls and angels. Ask yourself for a moment, are you willing to engage in a practice of the presence of the divine within you to the degree that the hope that things change in life strengthen within you, and then know that as you grow in your understanding of the way life itself works and your role in it as a divine being expressing yourself as a human, then that hope then grows, your desire for change, and then the same measure as your faith strengthens by this holy practice of practicing the presence. What he writes is that it then penetrates into the hidden mysteries of God. And in like measure, it finds in the Christ, you, a beauty beyond compare, surpassing infinitely that of earth, as also that of the most holy souls and angels. Meaning that when we surrender to that which exists within us and build our spiritual musculature to an acceptance of the presence of the power that exists within us, and then staying within that, not getting attached to what was or what is to be, but staying within then that it goes into some place that is beyond earthly measure, that place beyond where we can comprehend. It goes out into that place and does what, as we know as a metaphysician? It then returns to us in form. Ernest Holmes, the modern-day metaphysician relative to the brother, since he was in the late 19th century and early 20th century, he writes this. He says, the presence that we're here to talk about, be present in, is just simply God. So what I'm saying to you, and I'm encouraging you to stay present in the presence, what I'm saying to you is stay present in God. But not God as an anthropomorphic power, but God as an indivisible, infinite, indwelling presence that exists within each and every one of us. It is that which gives us life, and it indeed is life itself. It is that which is beyond your thought. It is beyond your physicality. It is even beyond your comprehension of it. And yet, the more and more you engage in comprehending it, it seems that it rises up more and more and more and gives of itself to you in the only way that it can, which is through you. And then when you take that and use it in a way to acknowledge it, to share it, to give it, to honor it in others, then the same returns and multiplies itself abundantly. Now, this is not the first time that we've heard this. But today I invite you to hear it anew as we move through this month of November, the month of gratitude, in a new way. Ernest Holmes goes on to write that the presence of God, to meditate upon the presence of God, is to endraw the universe into one's soul. So this power he's talking about is not bound. It's not bound by thought. It's not bound by geography. He's telling us that it is the universe itself. Now, this too is not something that's new for us as metaphysicians to hear, but I invite you in this moment to hear it anew. To think for just one moment anew that as you meditate on the presence of the power, what you're doing is indrawing the universe. So in your mind's eye, feel and see the universe. And then breathe in again, exhaling. And then as you breathe again, you're bringing in more of the universe. And you continue that pattern of breath of bringing in and drawing the universe and 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 the universe. And still there's way more of it than you can even breathe in. And yet what we do know is we breathe in more and more and more and more and more and more of that which is, that who we are gets better and better and better and better and better. Why? Because we're aligning ourselves with that which is innate within us. We're aligning that within us, which is the life force itself. Ernest goes on to write that the God we're talking about is not a person, but a principle that is personified in each of us. And the spirituality that we all practice is just simply the atmosphere of this principle. Now, we all know that we come here together on Sunday mornings to not only see our beloveds, to get a flour product with some nuts or raisins or whatever it is on top of it, to get some cake and to have some coffee and to have some tea and to hear some good music. What we really come here for is to be in the presence of the atmosphere of that only power. And that only power that I'm talking about isn't just taking place in here on Sunday mornings. It also takes place in here on Friday nights and Saturday nights and yesterday at the bar mitzvah. It happens when people come together and consciously commune into acknowledging and celebrating the only thing that takes place, the only thing that exists. And the only thing that exists is not bound by its definition. It just simply is. That's what he's talking about. And I want you to just take a moment and realize that this word God and then this word presence is mentioned in the book, The Science of Mind, 65 times. We're being told in that book, we're being instructed in that book to realize that the presence that we're being instructed this morning and for this month to stay present is not something that is fleeting. It's not something that is some minor component of our role in stepping into being a conscious evolutionist. It's not a minor component of us finding our personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening. It's a very vital piece of us evolving into a higher vibrational frequency of expressing that which we are as a divine being. Of not only just acknowledging the presence, the power, it itself, but embracing it, engaging in fact, doing everything we can in life to consciously be it. You notice I didn't say do everything in our power to be it, right? Why? Because there's nothing that we can do to be it. And there's nothing that we are that can't be it. We are it by design. And yet, there's so much that we can do to magnify it, to radiate it, to express it, to embody it, to live it, and ultimately, as we do so, bring it back into our field of experiencing, thus changing the atmosphere in which we live, move, and have our being, Ernest likes to say. So why do we need to stay present in the presence? One of the reasons is because I said earlier, it builds our spiritual musculature. It helps us develop a greater state of mind for life events. It supports us in revealing our identity to the world. It's important for us because we're called here today and each and every other day that we come together, not necessarily physically. That's a metaphor of meaning called here today, because we're called here today to honor that within us that has a desire to be more of that which we are. That's why. Because somewhere deep within us, we know that we have the capacity and the ability to express more and more of that universal power within us. And we know that as we express it and embody it and release it and honor it in others, then we're building up, if you will, a credit in our life to be prepared for those life events as they come towards us. This week in our class called Living the Gifts of an Abundant Life, which has been a pretty radical class, would you guys agree with that, students? It's been a time of being very vulnerable with one another and really honoring that presence that I'm talking about in a way that's really, really deep and revealing. It's been. The last two classes have been on forgiveness. The two classes ago was about forgiving others, and this particular class last Thursday night was on self-forgiveness. And it's been a great curriculum, and I'm so glad I got to put it together for us and do it. And one of the things that I found for us to share in this last class was about creating a practice of forgiving forward. Meaning doing conscious forgiveness work on a daily basis so that when stuff shows up in life that we feel the need to issue forgiveness for, primarily to the self, we've already done the work. We've already done the work. That our consciousness always goes, oh, you already handled that. We knew it was coming down the pike. Already done it. And that's the same, ladies and gentlemen, and everything beyond and in between in regards to our practicing the presence. That being aware of the presence that exists within us and our being present to that present does not necessarily have to be something that's reactionary as life events come along. That we have the ability to do the mental work, the consciousness work, the spiritual work, if you will, in advance so that when the events come towards us, potentially the outcome of this election that you may not agree with on Tuesday night, when there's more violence that's going to show up in the world, or when something just shows up in your own personal world that you think, whoo, wasn't ready for that, right? That you stop and say, but it's okay, because I'm not the event that's happening in my life. I am that which is transcendent of the event. And because I'm that which is transcendent of the event, because I have been staying present in the presence itself, I am prepared to deal with this. But that can only take place when we do our work. When we do our work of meditation, affirmative prayer, of living in kindness, of expressing peace, of honoring joy, of consciously stopping and seeing the light of the divine in the very individual before us that we think is the darkest sucker on earth. I'm not kidding. To really step back and go, that which I'm looking at is the same that I'm looking with. Not with eyes, but with life. I can only look with eyes because of that which exists within me. But because of that which exists in me, within me exists within you, and you, and you, and you. Then what is it that I'm seeing? What I'm seeing is the light. I'm seeing the light. I'm seeing the light. And from that base point in life, then there's a new practice of the presence of knowing that there's a place to commune with each other that is beyond our human thoughts, beyond our discourse, beyond our disagreements, and beyond our celebrations. It's living life from a place that is a namaste, if you will. Right now in Toronto, Canada, the Parliament of World Religions is taking place, and I chose to not go this year because, as many of you know, my son got married last weekend, which is a wildly beautiful event, which also many times required me to practice the presence. But I would invite you to go online and look at some of the things that's taking place at the Parliament of World Religions. Every 5 years, individuals from around the world come together that practice all of the religions of the world. And I've been before, and it is one of the most mystical and magical experiences that exist. Because you step into these massive buildings, these convention centers, with thousands of people that are all dressed in different garb, that many are conscious religious people that practice life and their religion that seem to be radically different from what it is that we believe. Some of it's even really radical relative to modern times. And yet, when you get behind those walls, all of that stuff that causes the discourse and the anger and that which seems to be all wrong dissipates. And the oneness comes up. And out of that oneness, there's just simply love. There's reverence, and there's respect, and there's acceptance, and there's honoring, and there's questioning. And there's inquiry, and there's intrigue, and there's being tired, and sometimes there's orneriness, and there's all those things that take place, what? In human life, right? If you take a moment and think about it, look around the room. We all walked in here. We're all dressed a little different. Some of us, our hair is a little different. Some have on hats. Some have on some native garb. Some's wearing a mask. Some have a pooch in their purse, right? We all have different philosophies and careers, even though we all have pretty much the same in this room. But this is just a microcosm of the macrocosm of life itself. But what's the commonality? The commonality is that we each get to experience the present. And we each get to choose whether to be consciously awake to the presence. And so today I encourage you and I invite you that as you move beyond these four walls, that you move beyond awakened to not only just practicing the presence, but choosing to see it, engage in it, honor it, inquire about it, celebrate it in each and every individual and all of their uniqueness. Remember what Ernie told us years ago. Spirit, that presence, that power, has placed the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Edward. So I'm going to welcome back to the Bema Doug Rapetti and Yoron Spiewak. You like it? That's you got a French name. That's the presence in you is now French today. Pepe Le Pew Le Yoron Spiewak. Joron.
It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. We're not some of those who can easily hide. We don't have much money. Boy, if we did, we'd buy a big house where we all could live. If I was a sculptor, but then again, no, man who makes potions in a traveling show. I know it's not much, but it's the best I can do. My gift is my song, and this one's free. And you can tell everybody this is your song. It may be quite simple. Now it's done. I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down a wonderful life is. I sat on the roof and I kicked off the verses. They've got me quite cross. The sun's been quite fine. I wrote this song. It's for people like you that so excuse me for but these things I do. See, I forgot if they really anyway, the thing is, what I really feels like me this time. You can tell everybody this is your song. It may be quite simple. Now that it's done, I hope you don't mind. Hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is while you're in the world. Sing it if you know it. I hope you don't mind. I don't mind that you put down the words how wonderful life is while you're in the